Take two, starting over again.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Let me fix my hair.
Mine too.
Okay, and you didn't even know it was broken.
Tom, I know in like high school you were into astronomy. I know at the time when you first met Phil Lesh that you were into. I just wanted to ask you, with all the technology and what they're doing with the satellites, seeing other planets, how do it must really blow your mind.
I had friends I was a student with who are doing that now. And it does blow my mind. One of my classmates in 1960s is now one of the foremost experts on near-Earth asteroids. I know some folks who worked on the New Horizons project, getting pictures of Pluto. Oh, and it's amazing, but I just had a little telescope. I was lucky it wasn't cloudy.
I did the same thing.
All the telescopes were earthbound. You couldn't see anything else, like after post-Hubble. Oh, it's truly amazing, and we never dreamed of finding exoplanets, planets outside the solar system. We thought they were just too far away. But in the 1950s, hey, Schenectady was far away.
Well, it was sci-fi then. Now it seems to be reality.
Well, we've outstripped science fiction. I remember reading science fiction stories written in the 1940s and set in the 1970s, and we've already moved past that. It's so difficult to imagine. I mean, who could imagine eBay, Facebook? I mean, nobody could have predicted that.
Yeah, I was asking about your daughter Clarissa, how I read that she plays piano and violin, and I just wanted to know how that's changed your relationship with her, and how, if she likes the same type of music that you did.
She's the joy of my life. She's a college freshman now. I don't know what she's going to wind up with. I'm not pushing her in any direction. She took violin lessons. She took harp lessons, the kind like they play in Ireland,
Wow.
And she definitely has a bent for it. I don't know if her interest ultimately will be in music, but I will approve of whatever she wants to go into. I know that my parents didn't like me going into music.
So that makes you, want to be different with the next generation that you're the father of.
Absolutely, laissez-faire. My kids are my joy, and in my parents' benefit, though, in the late 1950s, when I was getting off to go to college, it was just after Sputnik. In fact, my son Jeffrey is as old as I was when they put up Sputnik, and they were encouraging kids to go into the sciences. In any of the sciences, I was into astronomy and astrophysics, and said, go ahead, here's your scholarship. And I happened to run into Phil Lesh and Jerry Garcia, and there was a fork in the road, and I took it, as Yogi Berra would put it. And there are many forks such as I could not imagine ahead for my children, and I'm non-judgmental, I'm just smiling, and I know they will do well.
And my next question is about when you first joined the Grateful Dead, and how you got on with Pigpen, because it was his ensemble from the beginning, and you were the new guy that was sitting in on the keyboards.
Well, in a sense, I was the new guy. I'd met Jerry and Phil in 1961, and what happened is I was sort of spirited away into the Air Force, and I spent my time programming computers for them. And November 22nd, 1968, I got out of the Air Force, and the 23rd, I was on a plane to join the band and play with them. And so I'd been with them for a while and in touch with them and everything. Although about Pigpen, he and I were real close. He was a wonderful, wonderful gentleman. He looked like a pirate or a biker who would bite your head off, but he was a bright, intelligent soul. Gentle, wonderful. Those couple of times I got dosed, it was good that he was along. He was a big help. And his playing was a lot better than some people give him credit for, but when I started playing the organ, it liberated him to go out front and be a front man, which he really liked. Tunes like Love Light, King Bee, Hard to Handle. I often wonder what the band would have been like if he'd have continued doing it, because it was a different band with him fronting it.
Yeah, I was going to ask about, a lot of people don't talk about your influence on Pigpen.
He probably influenced me more. He turned on to boogie players like Albert Ammons, Pinetop Smith, Pete Johnson, Meade Lux Lewis. I probably turned on mainly Phil and Jerry to the avant-garde composers that I was into. I was a wild-eyed 20-something. Of course, so were they. So we were on the same page a lot of the time.
Well, I want to thank you for that, because what came from that is a beautiful thing.
Well, we were having fun pushing the envelope. Anthem of the Sun in particular was an overreaction because everybody felt that the first album didn't recreate the concert situation of actually hearing us. So we thought, well, hey, we'll overcompensate in a big way and maybe we'll hit the mark that way. And we didn't kind of miss, but it turned into something. And since then, there have been how many live albums that people refer to?
And I've heard that you overcompensated. You guys felt you overcompensated on that second album because of the people saying bad things about the first album that they put out. I happen to love the first album. I think it's raw and it's fresh and it's the bluegrass flavor that Jerry has in there really shines through.
Well, when I first met Jerry, he was into Appalachian folk music, Carter family, much of the things like that, Scottish folk music, folk songs. He had not acquired an electric guitar yet. That was way far in the future. But he was very open to that, and he moved about musical scenes like a magician.
Well, I know he made the trip to Pennsylvania. And he was following. I forget what it was. Earl Scruggs, or it was the person that he was trying to learn the banjo from a little bit better. But I know he got his floor is Sunset Park, I think it was, Pennsylvania. And then his first wife, his child was born, and he had to get back.
He definitely got around. But it wasn't so much that people didn't like the first album and what they did. They felt that it failed to recreate the impression of catching us in a live show. It seemed like the record couldn't do that. And we started to wonder if that was a problem with the recording medium. Another band that was definitely true of was Cream. A live Cream show was 100 times better than any of their albums. It was smoother. It was like the expensive whiskey compared to the cheap stuff. It was really, really nice, and we wondered if this was the nature of the beast. And so we felt we had to push the envelope a little bit to get what we wanted to get.
Okay, I understand that. And when you left the group, you were into. I know you wrote wrote the music for I don't know if it was a Broadway show.
It was off Broadway, and I had the opportunity to be a bigger fish in a smaller pond. But I went for it anyway. There were problems with the technology of the time. They weren't able to amplify the keyboards so they could compete with 4 Jerry Garcia twin reverbs turned up to 10. And so my dynamic range consisted of triple forte, double forte, and inaudible. And I didn't feel I had much headroom to do anything creative.
Yeah, it must be frustrating if, that's what I've read about it, that if you can't really hear yourself, contribute, and you have a lot to contribute.
Mm-hmm. Well, everybody wants to find themselves in the mix, to find yourself on the map. And the technology has definitely come a long way since then. And to be fair, I had a lot to learn my own self. I sometimes think if I had the study habits then that I have now, I might have amounted to something.
Okay, and my last question involves, I know that you were a big baseball fan, and I know that when you lived out on the West Coast, you were probably into the Giants, like I know Jerry and Bob and the guys have done some singing at Candlestick Park, and I guess the new stadium. But are you still a fan of the Giants? I know you live on the East Coast now.
No, I go back to the New York Giants. The first game I saw was at the Polo Grounds against the Boston Braves. I had the baseball card of the Boston manager. It said he was born in 1894. So there were people who had managed for John McGraw, who were on his team. And so it went way, way, way back. And I remember the Philadelphia A's, Connie Mack. Wow. The Phillies, the Whiz Kids in 1950. I was so disappointed the Yankees got the best of them. They didn't deserve it, or nor did they deserve it when they beat the Giants in 51. But I remember Richie Ashburn, Eddie Waitkus, Granny Hamner, Stan Lapata, Jim Constanten, my near same name, the relief pitcher.
Yeah, that's rare.
Robin Roberts, of course, number 36, Kurt Simmons. A wonderful team, very entertaining to watch. And of course, I have to mention Bill Nicholson. Swish, one of only 2 players ever to have been walked intentionally with the bases loaded. Now that's a tribute.
I know you were born, I think, in Long Branch, New Jersey.
That's right.
Were you ever a fan of the Yankees? Or?
Never. Never, 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 never. And I hated them back when they were worth hating. Although I did see some games where I saw DiMaggio in uniform. And Hank Bauer, you could scratch a kitchen match on his beard. And I threw in with the Giants. Some of your older fans might remember back in the day, when you exited the ballpark, you could walk on the field, and you exited under the outfield door.
I didn't know that.
And once, one of the players ran by me to go to the door. It was number 23, Bobby Thompson. So I was as close to Bobby Thompson as I am to you now, although I was somewhat younger.
Well, I'm sure you enjoyed that. And you're still who's your team now that you live in? I know you live in North Carolina.
I've been sort of disenfranchised because I can't get to as many Giants games, but I am a season ticket holder of the Charlotte Knights. So that's fun. I've taken my kids to see them, and not being $70 a seat per game sort of deal, I can get better seats for a lot less, and I've been enjoying myself this summer.
Well, I appreciate you giving us the time for this interview, and it was really great meeting you, Tom.
Great to meet you too, and I'll be looking for the Phillies in the playoffs one of these years. Look out! It will happen.
Well, I don't know about the Phillies. I'm a big Eagles fan myself.
Oh well, we don't want to talk about the Oakland Raiders. But that's I hope they do well too.
All right, thank you. It was a pleasure talking to you.
A delight. Thank you for the intelligent questions.